could refresh. They could refresh. Islam, Islam. Peace and love to all the Moors.
Islam.
We are here once again. Canaanland Moors Sunday meeting. You know, we're not back in full swing, but you know, we're back enough that we could get this going right here. So we'll just start up with our prayer. I don't have my other literature. I forgot all that stuff. But we'll start up with the prayer. Face the east. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector,
Allah is
my guide,
guide,
and my salvation.
and my salvation.
By night
By night
and by day,
and by day,
His holy prophet,
His holy prophet,
Islam, Islam wars.
Yeah.
So we have opportunity to be with one of what we consider our master teachers, Grand Sheikh Nature El Bey, Sheikh Esnika El Bey. And you know, if you got any questions in the chat, you could feel free to put those out. Before we start, we just want to give honors to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, praises to Allah, honors to Marcus Garvey, and all the Moors worldwide, wherever you're at. You already know how Canaanland Moors does for our people. You know what I mean? We're looking out for you right now. You know, even though temples closed, you know what I mean, at the request of the adepts here, we said that we had to make ourselves available to the Moors, having the temple open when we can, doing a little social distancing, whatever, and making sure again that we keep the Moors in line with, you know, what's going on from the right sources, because with everything going online right now, everybody could get anything from anywhere, and everything might not be where you want to be. So before we do that, there's a couple articles that we just want to screen share with the family and go through some of those while we have some discussions. Oh yeah, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
This was sort of Nature,
Yes.
Islam. So it's Omar Sharif. We've met before. For social distancing, I'm gonna do it like this. But anyways, this is one of the, you know, and I'm glad that just came to me. That was the spirit talking right there. You know what I'm saying more? But one of my thoughts was this. I was having this talk with my mother, and you know, we all come from the mother. But and I felt there was, and it's been wild. Maybe other people have been feeling this, but I've been feeling a greater connection to my family. And one of the feelings that I was having was that, you know, if my going out helps us as a society keep going, at this point, that's where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? If my life, you know, I have an empress and I have an offspring, but if they were set up and my sacrifice would get us back on our feet, I would do it in an instant. And my mother was saying that she was mimicking, and she's now in her 70th revolution, she was mimicking that experience too, because you know, the cure is more painful than the disease. You know, at least up here, they're saying, so we've got 1%, or I think 0.1% that is being getting the virus, and we're having then 0.3 of that 1% dying. And then I'm thinking the whole world is in lockdown. You know, for a couple hundred people. I Googled how many people die a year from gunshots. 100 people die every day from being shot by a gun. All right. I'm locked down because some guy ate a bat in China. You know, like this is where we're at. And then my leaders, this is what they have. This is the solution to this. A month they don't have anything going on. First of all, they've excused themselves by incompetency alone. They're not prepared for this. Ergo, they shouldn't be government. You know, but anyway, my feeling is versus sort of like this feeling of, okay, we need to stay in because we're protecting everyone. This is what I said to Cujo. Then we can't have another war ever. Because if we're this concerned about the loss of life, then we're done, right? We should never be killing anyone anymore. My empress was saying this is maybe just the new flu. This is where we're at right now. People are going to pass because of where we've gotten to, but this really should be a wake-up call for us to turn our SHIT around and get and concentrate on what's really important, if that's what's really important. Anyways, I yield. I put that all in there to see what your position is between, at a certain point, continuing to live.
Islam. I mean, just on that note too, I just want to make I don't want to say a correction, but just add on, give it another twist. I think we all are under or victimized of the virus.
Absolutely.
By definition of what the virus actually really represents. And like you said, not even another war, but this is an example of war now.
Absolutely.
So we're currently, and we've been at war.
Absolutely.
So and we're being attacked on so many different levels that this is just something that we're being brought to our awareness and our consciousness that we're at war. And some of us know that and feel that, but some of us still don't think that we're under attack. But the conscious ones do. But the reason why I'm saying that is because it's not a matter if we get the virus or not. People are emotionally driven and afraid based off what they're told. They wait for someone to tell them something before they react. That triggers their emotions. And if we understand that this is a virus that's viral, that's in the air, everybody is victim to the virus. Now, when people get sick, that's just an effect of their immune system being too much at a low point or disadvantage, that their defense mechanisms are not able to keep themselves alkaline or healthy. But everybody has traces of the virus in them. The human body, even in its healthy state, has traces of bacteria and toxins in them at all times. We can't, as humans, we can't even live without bacteria in our body. So our understanding of what's going on just needs to be clear so that people can understand what to do if their body starts to be on a downgrade. They don't have to get emotionally stressed out and think it's the end of the world and end of themselves and think that they're going to physically, die because of this. They just need to understand what to do, how to reverse the polarity, or just how to deal with self. It's right back to know thyself. And once we understand it from that perspective, then we're just, our defense would come our mental defense will kick in now. Is okay, being that this is viral and it's in the air, how can I have a better defense for myself in these days of times? Have some people wearing the mask, some people doing different things, some people staying indoors, some people going out. It's based off perception. And once we get into the understanding of what this really is, then we can pretty much start to defend ourselves a little bit better.
Islam.
Islam.
Once again, any more is in the chat. If you got any questions, you can hit the link, or you could ask your questions in the chat. Go ahead, more.
Islam. And before you go there, I just want to define the word virus.
Islam.
If you could tell them more, stop texting me because it's going to interfere with. Yeah, no. Tell them to just try to hold off on the group text. There's a chat room in here where Morris can comment.
Yeah, there's a chat room. Yeah, once they go on YouTube, the chat room will open up, so they can
use the chat room, please, and not the group text. Islam.
Islam.
These are just two definitions that I want to draw off of. One is an effective agent that typically consists of a nucleic acid molecule in a protein coat. It is too small to be seen by light microscopy and is able to multiply only within the living cells of a host. Number two, a piece of code which is capable of copying itself and typically has a detrimental effect, such as corrupting the system or destroying its data. Now, there are two different definitions from two different angles. And far as the war that we were speaking about, not only is it a nucleic atmosphere type of disease or virus that we're dealing with, but it's also a data virus that we're dealing with. So it has many different agendas within the whole agenda of the virus itself. How some people saying it's 5G and people talking about chemtrails being sprayed. There's multitudes of attacks from the same agenda.
Yeah.
And it's hard to just, it's all a distraction too, though, because as people are trying to address and they believe their perception is that is one thing, although it might be part of that one thing, but it's also part of several different other attacks as well. And as we get into the more the social or the viral, that's not even the right word I want to use, but as we get more into the internet, the web, the more viral from that perspective. Now there's going to be attacks on that different levels too, where the internet is being effective. There's even like Zoom and a lot of the different social network sites are being attacked. And there's a lot of subliminal codes, because the virus is also a code. There's a lot of codes that's being implemented into these sites because they know that people are socially distancing physically. So they're going to catch them virally as well through the internet and through the phones and through the TV. So this is attack is on many different levels. And we just have to be conscious enough to know that just because they shut down one avenue, don't think that we can jump to another platform and be safe. We have to really do the one to what's going on. Islam.
Islam.
What did you just say the last part there? What? Just don't think we can jump platforms? What was the last thing you just said?
That was a question? I didn't hear that.
No, the question was, just repeat that last part about the platforms.
I was saying that, you know, like the lessons say, even in the path to wisdom, we toileth after folly. So meaning that just because we are conscious on one level and they shut down one platform, don't think that we can jump to another platform to try to have communication or to try to have an outlet of socialization, because they're 2 or 3 steps ahead of us, where they shut down one platform and they're putting the attack in other platforms that we might go to as the remedy. No different from they created the disease and then they also create the remedy or the cure for you. Well, we know that the cure also contains the attack. It's the same thing with the social distances and the social the social gatherings that's taking place like online now, like Zoom, a lot of the chat rooms and the YouTube channels, and you know, even entertainers and different shows are resulting to the internet to even make money or to continue their work or to do whatever. A lot of online schools is all digital for the children. So they're attacking those platforms as well, is what I'm saying. Because they know that people are socially distancing themselves, where they might have a safeguard physically, but they're resulting to more activity on the media, on the viral networks, as far as the internets and the television, to shorten up that gap of that attack, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right. Somebody had a question in the chat. I would like to get naturalization cards for myself and my family. What steps do I take? He did say naturalization, for the record.
Yeah, I hear.
All right.
You have a highlighter? You can highlight a couple things. Islam. So far as the naturalization, there's a slight difference between naturalization and nationalization. Although naturalization was the organic and original term and process used for conferring citizenship to citizens, the Nationalization Act of 1790 was the last organic act that dealt with the confirming of the term nationalization. After that, Congress had changed it to naturalization, and that's when they went into their separate codes where they turned naturalization into a foreign process to confer citizenship to foreigners. So we at this time do not use the term naturalization for declaring citizenship because we're not foreigners. We don't have a foreign status. We are Aboriginal, indigenous to the land, most of us. But even if we're not, we're still grandfathered into the naturalization, the true naturalization clauses, which is under the term nationalization. Now, even within the term nationalization, you still have to be, it still has several different meanings because nationalization could be applied or assumed to bringing property under government control. So we're not property, we're not chattel goods, and that's not what we're making reference to even when we say nationalization. Nationalization is just a term used to denote nation bringing under the control or protection of a nation. That's what the term nationalization means, to make national. Now, again, your mind can go in several different directions when you hear that, but there's not one set definition for the term nationalization. So also be aware when you use that term as well. Don't just assume someone knows what that means when you use the term nationalization, because we're not property. However, we are to proclaim our free national name and religion is what we're doing. Other term, we're using the phrase nationalization to make reference to the process of becoming part of the nation. Now, how do you go about that? Yes, most temples are not physically conducting business, but they should still administratively still be functioning. And you still can do things by the mail because we never stopped doing that. We were doing that even when we was physically meeting. Most of the processes of helping someone proclaim their nationality is done online. So it's a national and a global thing at this time. So the only thing that's putting brakes on that being done is where we file it. Now, most of us from a common law perspective file the nationalization documents with the county recorder's offices. Now, all the counties are shut down to the COVID-19. So the documents, they're still administratively supposed to be accepting mail by way of P.O. box, and some of them might file things, but some of them might not. And even if they do file it, it might take months before they actually put it in a record because their administrative labor is not as where it was. They all backed up. Every office, government office, DMV, they all backed up. So the chances of getting something on a record right now is very slim. But we still will certify or register mail the documentation to the county recorders and just use that registered mail number or certified mail number as proof of notice to the principal and notice to the agent. And that's really the best thing we can do at the moment. And also proclaiming your nationality is something that's done with you, the individual, first, and is acknowledged by the nation. So that is really something that is already acknowledged when one proclaims or sends their documentation and application to the regencies, the temples, or whatever governmental body that the Moors is functioning under. That's the first step with proclaiming a nationality. The administrative process is putting it on the record. But one is already proclaimed before it even goes to the record, because that's something that's done in-house, if that makes sense.
So,
Question. Go ahead, Mark.
Islam, or to add on to the question, or to so you could maybe elaborate a little more. Does one have to put on record or do some type of paperwork with the de facto to put them on notice, whether notice the agent, notice the principal, to become a national, or is it a requirement, or is proclaiming really the only requirement that's needed?
It fulfills the requirement, because our job as citizens of the Republic is to notify the public's interests. So the public's interest is not just our domestic affiliation, i.e. Moors in the temple. The public's interest is also creditors. It could be debtors. It could be public officials, whoever they be. And specifically because we were already declared as Christians according to 14th Amendment Acts and the manumission of the 1700s, we have to counter-react or counterclaim the claim that was already put on the record on our behalf. So just taking notice to the Moors is not good enough, because we have to put a counterclaim in the record, in the public record, to say we're not Negro, Black, or colored. And that has to be done officially, which means that we have to declare that to governmental officials. And the way to declare it to public officials is putting it on the public record. So the county recorder's office is responsible for putting documents on the public record. So the public record pertains to the county clerk, and the county clerk is really the only elected official that has the authority, according to the Constitution, to put documents on the public record. So as a fulfillment, to answer the question, because the fulfillment can't be complete, and it's not our fault, they're not open. The next best thing is to just send them notification of what took place. Whenever they get around to filing it, that's just on them. But we took our steps and approach to putting it on the public record by sending it to them.
Islam.
Islam.
Going back to you're seeing the screen, right?
Yes.
Yes. All the questions, I'll just put them up there. So that's the next question that was asked.
All right. So Islam. So yeah. So the virus is definitely a distraction, although it's real. It's a reality, but it is also a distraction for, like I said, several other agendas. So the financial reset is definitely one of them. The New World Dominance is definitely another one of them. Some of them are already taken. Some of the agendas already have manifest, as far as the couple $1 trillion that was granted to Trump. That was part of the plan the whole time.
Sorry to interject. I had another one, the breakdown of the school system.
Yes. And it's also a test, because when they do fully manifest martial law and the New World Dominance, as brother said, they want to also, they're doing a test run to see how the people reacts to certain things, as far as the stores being closed, how the transportation of certain things is going to play out. So it's a test for them, and we have to take heed to that, because that test also has to be a test for us, because we have to test ourselves on, this is the lower level. How do we react to this? Some of us failed, some of us were successful, but it's going to get it's going to be heightened where it's going to go to another level. And if you didn't learn from this level, then we definitely not going to have a chance next go round. They already telling us there's going to be a next go round of this.
And then just one of the last things that you were talking about, because it is a multiplicity of these angles, but the devices that we have now have allowed them now to do a lot better sort of logistics behind it. Not just, you know, the whole number crunching, the data crunching is at a whole new level within the testing. So that is it, and that's part of the 5G, because that's where I think it's tied in with the separating. We want to see what every individual is about, what they're doing. That's all part of that whole kind of the mass versus the individual, yet it all being apart to see how trends move, all that kind of stuff.
Yes, and the economy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that data that you're speaking about, like I said, now everybody is going on the internet. A lot of their personal information, their personal business, their whereabouts, the retina scans. They're more active on the internet now than they ever been. And
absolutely.
And that's a data draw for them.
Absolutely.
Because now they're able to gain more information about who's doing what, who's associated with what, and what everybody's financial status is, and what are people's interests. And they're able to target them and keep tabs on them more because they're going on the internet. That was back to my opening of what I was talking about with that. So we have to be careful not to give them too much. And part of the other thing is the 2020 census.
Absolutely. Yes,
don't forget about that. That's very important because that's part of their plan.
That was huge too. That was the other underlying thing too. 2020
so the national debt, although it never was paid off, but now the $2 trillion actually, and it's going to be more than that. That's just the first go round. They already depleted those funds. But now what that does is, who prints that money? The Federal Reserve. Who are the Federal Reserve? They're foreign bankers. So just like everybody are talking about receiving their check in the mail, companies are talking about the PPP loans, which is the payroll loans that the government is sending. Those are loans. The money that you're getting in your bank account is a loan. It's not a grant. It's not free money. But the $2 trillion that was given to the so-called government is also a loan. It's not a grant. Anytime the Federal Reserve prints money, that's a service, and the service fee and taxes and interest is applied to that. Who pays for that? The citizens. Absolutely. So we share the debt that's associated with that $2 trillion. So we got to understand that now, to secure that $2 trillion, they have to come up with collateral interest.
That's us.
It's always been us, but now it's on another level though. It's not the same collateral that we've been talking about. That's the most that they ever printed for a loan or granted for a loan.
Absolutely.
So there has to be some type of backing, collateral backing for that $2 trillion plus. So that's where the new world dominance comes in at now, because now that's a global debt now. That's not a domestic debt anymore.
Yeah, that's what I was tying this into. That one of the theories that I had was, due to the works that we've been doing, we basically eviscerated their system here. This whole debt system that they've been running with is done. Because of our activity, because of all that writs, all that stuff has totally killed this present day paradigm economy, and now they're going into a martial law economy, and it's being borne on our backs through the perceptions that we have that this thing is real. It's all it's just like 2011. It's just like 2001 with the bombing. I was showing that we set up a panic, then we set up an incident, then going on that has no happening, right? And that's just to further our ends. The fallout is a continuum of the shackling of us in one form or another. Before, in 2011, it was all the finances, Remember, all of it now, all of your money's being watched.
Mhm.
Now that was the next.
Yes. All of your fiat is being
Islam.
watched.
Absolutely.
Islam. So there's another question. It says, do you think the shutdown will end anytime?
Under the guise that you're using that finance to go fund terror.
To go fund what? I didn't hear the
Islam,
last word.
It seems like it's choppy.
Yeah, I don't know. The stream is choppy right now.
They're on you. They're on you.
They're on to you.
Well, we know
What do you
that.
expect, bro? What are you
We
talking about?
know that. Islam. So just the
Yeah, the next question is on the screen.
True. Before I address that, the finance that he was just speaking about. Remember, the term finance means the management of money. So now is a time where
Finance, the management of money. That's what it's saying.
Definitely onto something, eh, guys? Definitely onto
Be
something here.
but the individually management is not really what's being managed. Is the powers that be is really managing your money, like you just said. And because we're considered debtors, and to their eyes, they claim that they have the authority to manage whatever you have in your account. That's why part of the stimulus money that they're giving you, they have to know what you're working with, especially for businesses. But they have access to your account. That's the way that they can go in and put funds in people's account. They've been putting money into people's account, and they didn't even request for the money. You know, so it becomes a contract if you accept it and you use it. But it just shows you that they have access to your records. And those
Right.
people who don't, they said if you haven't filed taxes in the past couple of years and things of that nature, then they don't have access to giving you the money because they don't know how to give you money. So they're saying for those people, you have to go online and fill out the application and your PO box and let them know where to send you a physical check. But the key is if they could put everybody into a hardship where they need fiat, and you're forced to give them data that they're really looking for in exchange for the fiat. And that's really what they need. The data is more important to them than the fiat.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the
Absolutely.
fiat, the
100%.
fiat is just a distraction.
Absolutely. Relevant.
As
Yes,
far
relevant.
as do I think it was shut down anytime soon, I can't answer that. I know dealing with science and also dealing with prophecies, the worst is yet to come. So although we would like this thing to be over and we think we have seen the worst, we have not seen the worst. So it's a matter of listen to the radio, listen to the news. They're going to tell the truth, and they've been telling us that there's going to be another round of this. So my opinion, that's the only thing I can give you at the moment. My opinion is they will return, I won't say back to normal business, but they will return back to business under new guidelines. And they're going to take the data, the test that they did with this first go round, they're going to take that back to the lab and prepare for the next go round is what I believe.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because, you know, another opinion is Trump is about the fiat and is hurting his ego to have businesses shut down and have the economy at a standstill. And he really wants people to get back to work. This is beyond him. So he's going to do everything in his power to try to get businesses and people back to work. But that doesn't mean that we have a safeguard after that. I think people just need to get their house in order, get their personal affairs in order. And when things do get up and running, they need to use that finance management more wisely and prepare. we have all the signs out there that we need to prepare. And that's what this is what's really at stake now.
Let's go. Next question's up there.
So someone's asking about, is RV Bay trusted and safe for Moors in America to go through to receive name changes, etc.? That's perception. And absolutely RV Bay is trusted and safe for Moors, but it's your perception on what you're doing. We're not doing name changes.
Right.
So something that's good can also do harm if you don't really understand the process. RV Bay has more of, and most Moors that you see outside the box is more of an advanced learning, and things are given.
Yeah, it's cutting you out. It's cutting you out. Hold on. They're tripping right now.
Should look into Noble Drew Ali's process for proclaiming your free national name.
Hold on, more. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on one sec, more.
Hold on.
Hold on. They got you. They got you frozen right now. Yeah, they still got you frozen a bit. I don't know what's going on.
I didn't tell you, the next churchman is next
Can you
door.
hear me?
Something, I don't
Yeah, I
know
can.
what it
Yeah, I
is.
can hear you, but it's.
Yeah.
I'll chill it.
Kicking back.
Big screen and shit, bro. He's like,
Screaming out with the
Hey,
ties.
Grand Chief.
Yeah, but, yeah. Yeah, it's choppy.
Grand
It's
Chief,
choppy.
you want to answer that question? Maybe they can hear you, or elaborate
Yeah,
on.
all right. It doesn't say change on the site. It says correction. Now, like the Grand Sheik was saying, the idea of them being is because of certain aspects of the Moorish Science Temple not doing that job that they should have been doing. So if the temple was doing their job, there wouldn't have been any need for other bodies to be doing anything. All the administration would have been done through the temple function. And we know that there are more science temples who do that job properly, which is why, for example, we'll have Grand Sheik Nature on our platform as a more science temple representative to give you the perspective should be coming from the Moorish Science Temple, because we know majority of the perspectives coming from the Moorish Science Temple actually stray people away from it. It doesn't get so, you know, the things like going onto that site, even though they're not Moorish Temple, there's a Noble Drew Ali section, so you can learn something about Noble Drew Ali. You know, you can get, you know, Quran, or you can get questionnaire or whatever, because again, once the people stopped doing what they were supposed to be doing, other Moors who had active mindsets picked up the slack. So in the uplifting work that wasn't being done by certain people. So like we're saying, it is a trusted source, especially with regard to studying and things like that. But again, that's perspective. Because if you speak to somebody from Moor Science Temple, they wouldn't say go through there to do your proclamation. Because there's other ways that it can be done, could be done successfully at the benefit of the individual making the proclamation. Allow you the floor there, Grand Sheik, if you wanted to carry on.
That was well put. And just again, a person, or a natural person that is, has to be aware of what they want to do. And for correction purposes, we don't want to use terminology or language that can put us back in a tight situation. And that's one of the benefits that RV-based site does. It will educate you on what your language needs to be. So for information purposes, if an individual study, they will arrive at the knowledge of truth. They arrive where they need to be to make the necessary adjustments themselves.
Right. Scroll to that next question. All right, the next question, Grand Chief, is should people use the stimulus check to buy land or gold?
Why not? Why?
They tripping you again, Grand Chief?
They're like, oh, shit, that's the question. No,
We can't have this.
Stop that question. No, push the button. Remember me and the button? Push the button. That Omar
Next
on
question,
there.
next question. Classified. Classified. Everything's classified. Yeah, he's gonna try getting back again.
Right? Takes that same question, right? Ask another one to it. Should they put all that, the money they got or fiat, and invested into, take all that
Gold and silver.
and put it into a trust?
You see, yeah, there's a value in the trust being there, but ultimately the trust from my perspective is also to be able to administer stuff. So like, that's part of where I totally am in agreement with what the trust represents. It's a protectionary thing, but you have to act, you actually have to be active with it. So that would then be doing things with that, right? From that perspective, that's usually what trusts are about in a certain way. Well, or actually they could be there to just be as
protection for your assets.
yeah, an actual repository.
Their protection is
Repository. Repository.
Yeah.
Islam,
What's going on? Eh?
I'm back on. It cut me off for a minute.
There's a lot more. The next question on the screen right there.
Perception again.
No, as I say, it's
It does
say that
not.
again?
Can you hear?
Perception. Yeah, we can hear you.
So the stimulus check is not going to be enough to buy land, just for starters. You can buy some gold, but I don't think that's what needs to be done. Am I still clear?
Yeah, you're here more.
All right. So one of the things that should be done is trying to put yourself in a situation where you have resources. Land is definitely resources, but that's not going to be enough just by itself, just with a check. But we have to put ourselves in a position as entrepreneurs. We have to put ourselves in a position of farming, being merchants of some sort, to where we can have something to fall back off if this situation arises again, where jobs are shut down and social distances and things like this take place. You want to be in a situation where you still can accumulate some types of funds or either work off a barter system. If you don't have any resources, it's hard to do that. It's hard to survive. So we need to look in investing into things that's going to have a residual income or some type of barter value to it, that we can continue to get our necessities when the paper currency is no longer available, when credit cards and debit cards is no longer available. Things are going to go back to the barter system. And if we don't have anything to barter or to trade with, then we're going to be in trouble. So the money, the investment, the fiat is going into investing in things that's going to have in necessities that's going to bring us some type of residual income on the backhand of this.
Wow.
What's the law, man?
Was there another question?
Next questions on the.
Huh?
Yes, sisters acting with King George III or more. And I can't answer that. My opinion, I mean, it all depends on what your definition of a Moor is, because there were Europeans and different ethnic backgrounds that are Moors. They're Moors by descent. You have a lot of mixed descendant Moors, but there's Moorish blood in everybody on the planet. As far as what that individual declared himself or what their citizenship was, they didn't declare themselves as Moorish descent, if that's what your question is. But they are Moors by descent. So if the money is printed, what do we pay the Federal Reserve with? Gold, labor, or freedom? So I don't really understand that question. From the first perspective of it, the labor is what you're not paying the Federal Reserve back directly anyway. But your labor is what the collateral trade is, if that's where I think you're going with it.
Yeah,
So
I think that's where he was going with it. Yeah, I think that's where he was going.
All right. Yeah, it's definitely labor, trade labor. And it's also a stock. It's a stock for collateral to back the loan. And all of your assets also is what is used to pay them back as well, because when they're ready to liquidate all of their assets, then because people can't own property, it doesn't matter. Property can't own property, but the people are listed as property. Because they have what they claim is assets, those assets really belong to the state. So that's also part of the collateral, not just the individual's labor, but it's also the assets. So when they're ready to liquidate, if they default on their loan, just say the U.S. defaults on their loan somehow, then the Federal Reserve is federal. They're not part of the U.S. Remember this. So if they have to liquidate because of default on the loan, then anything pertaining to the people's assets is also up to question. It's something that they're going to take. That's where martial law really comes in at. When they start seizing property and assets and people, that's something in the future that's definitely going to take place, but that's something we're not going to get into right now.
So, the next question was, is that the website at the bottom of the screen still for you, Moorish Guidepost?
Yes. Yeah, but right now it's under construction. We're about to revamp it, so you might not can't get on it right now. But in the near future, we'll be back up and running.
Next question.
Perception.
So there's another.
Hold on.
I see the question.
The Africa one.
It's perception. Do
Yeah.
I think we should leave America and go to Africa? That's perception again. So we are in Africa,
Where's America?
which is a Mexum. Africa is just a modern day tag for it. And we're in the furthest west part of a Mexum, which is called Africa. Do I think we should leave and go somewhere else? No. Because the challenge is here.
Islam.
Most of us was born here, and we was born here for a reason. So when we get into incarnation and reincarnations, our citizenship and our nationality is really based off our karmic experiences. So it's not by coincidence that we're all here in what we call North America fighting this Negro, Black, and colored situation. That's a karmic situation that we put ourselves in that we must fight. So getting up and leaving and abandoning the problem or the situation is not the answer. The prophet says we will not get by him this time. So we have to stay here and deal with it. The lesson says that the keys of civilization is in our hands. It's in the hands of the Muslims in America, the Asiatics here, right here, the Moorish Americans, the Moors in this portion of America / Mexum / Africa. The Moors right here in North America holds the keys to civilization. And when we really understand that, we'll realize that the rest of the planet is waiting for us to solve this karmic situation. So we do not want to leave. No, we can't leave.
Absolutely.
Islam.
That
We
was
all
it.
participate with the call. Talking to me, Islam.
Islam, more. Next question. No,
wait till this one.
So if you have your own business, you can set up a trust or corporation where you do not have to use a personal social security number. And the business itself does not have to have a personal guarantor or an individual. The only time you need to use a social security number is if you're setting up a sole proprietorship or some LLCs. But we have to go past that and set up a corporation where an individual is not harmless or liable to the corporation itself, i.e. a trust. And the business will be the trade, and the business name is the trade name, and whatever you're trading or whatever you're doing business under is the business doing business. It's business to business, it's called. So business is doing business with other businesses. The individual is not doing business. And that's where we should be anyway. Even if you don't have a occupational business at the moment, you still want to get into the practice of setting up a trust or a corporation just to protect your assets for right now until you get business minded, where you start to not work for someone else and establish your own business. So now will be a good practice step to just start setting up trusts and businesses and just do small things under that, even if you're not relying on that business right now, but just to get into the practice of setting it up, put it on record, because one day they're going to stop all businesses from even opening according to their system legally, as far as filing a business and getting a
so
trade name and certificates of businesses and EIN numbers and tax ID numbers and things of that nature. Because the social security number on a lower level is the EIN number. The EIN is the employee identification number, which is the same as your social security number. But if you're a business or have a trust, then you will have a tax ID number, which is not the same number as your social security number. So the next question is, so a community
that
or
next
nation,
question with
yeah, I'm going on to the next question.
all right.
It says a community or nation can build trust from having assets and storage of assets. Can you rephrase that question, please? Was that a question or is that a statement?
Not even a question slash statement, qualifying statement relative to the nation using its assets to build a trust.
Well, yes and no. An individual can set up a trust, and an individual can have its own individual assets. So that can be done from an individual perspective. On another level, on where Drew Ali was establishing the nation, he also set up a trust. And the assets for the nation doesn't belong to the individuals themselves. It belongs to the nation. That should be done. It was done a long time ago, but because of the neglect of our leaders and our past leaders to keep up what Drew Ali set up, that has not been preserved for these past generations. So we have to rebuild that trust from a nation perspective. When you talk about nation or nationality, you're talking about a trust and you're talking about assets. Governments have assets. A government is a nation. And a government slash a nation or nation state have their own resources and trust set aside from the individual membership. And this is why Noble Drew Ali made a statement where he says that individual names should never be applied to property. He said, put all property in the name of the Moorish Science Temple or the name Noble Drew Ali. And this was a statement that he made back in the 1920s. And it was a statement based off the trust question that we're talking about right now. Is because whatever the Moorish Science Temple of America accumulated from a national perspective, then that becomes the assets of the nation itself, not of the individual. And the protections is different. When you have assets from an individual perspective, it's easier to get to. It's easier for someone to challenge. It's easier for someone to liquidate those assets. But when it's in the name of a nation, it's harder for them to come after. And that's why Noble Drew Ali said individual property or name should never be applied to the property, because as individuals was getting more conscious back in the 1920s and starting to bring their assets that they already had before they nationalized or whatever, he didn't want them to lose their property because of their misinformation or negligence to knowing trust law and knowing how to protect certain assets. So he told them to put it into the Moorish Science Temple's name. That way, he was the secure party where he can protect, defend legally those assets. So we're limited nowadays on the Moorish Science Temple being that national representation for all of the Moors. So right now, we can't say put your property or your assets in the name of the Moorish Science Temple, because we don't have the collective or national leadership yet. We're still in the rebuilding process of putting the Moorish Science Temple back where it's supposed to be. So the job is, and always have been, is for us to take our place and try to help get the Moorish Science Temple where it needs to be, not set up another platform to put assets in or to create a trust in what a lot of people is doing. And if we do that, then we're definitely not going to have the national representation that we need. It needs to be in the name of the Moorish Science Temple. But before we do that, we need to put the correct and the proper leadership in the Moorish Science Temple, people that we can trust, people who have the knowledge. We need to elect them amongst the people, amongst the plebiscite. Once we get the Moorish Science Temple rolling the way it needs to be, then it could just be a flip a switch process to start putting assets and things in, because we already have the correct de jure system that the people need to function in this republic society. So it's premature, but it's necessary right now. So for now, you just put it in, you set up your individual trust until we can get the Moorish Science Temple where it needs to be. Then we can change things over in the future.
Islam.
Islam.
And not to discredit some local regions, there are Moors out there that are functioning correct. There are Moorish Science Temples out there that is functioning correct or trying to function correct. And we have to put our support into those Moors that are trying to do the right thing and bring whatever knowledge that we have to the table so we can perfect those regencies, because each individual temple can have their own trust, and you can put property and assets in the individual or the local domestic temple for now. The national temple is premature, but there are certain temples that are doing the right thing. So I don't want to discredit or neglect them from what they're doing. And you'll know who they are just by being active and studying. Then you'll know who's doing what. We don't have to say no names.
Lord.
Next question. What is our role as Moors right here and now? I lost that question.
Yeah, hold on.
Also,
My
is
bad.
bearing arms.
Does anybody remember that question?
Yeah, I'm gonna get it back right now. Hold on. Yeah, this thing's lagging crazy right now. All right, there you go, Mark.
All right, I got it. What is our role as Moors right here and now in all of this? Also, is bearing arms the direction we should go? Well, when you say what is our role as Moors, our role as Moors right now is what has always been. It's just unfortunate that we're at a situation where it's real and people are forced to make changes. But people that's already on the level are not doing anything different now than they was doing last month or last year. The whole program of the Moorish Science Temple, from day one, the lessons are all considered instructions and warnings. Everything the Noble Drew Ali gave us was in the format of a warning. The warning means that he's warning us of something that is sure to come. That's why it's so important that we heed the words of Drew Ali, and we can't leave the lessons out of the curriculums that the Moors got going on, because Moors might be dealing with present day situations, which is relevant, but the platform is still within what Drew Ali's warnings was. He was preparing us for what we're going through right now. The current events that's taking place, what you want to call a virus, the 5G, whatever you want to call it, is a manifestation of destiny. This is something that was destined to come. And the prophecies, the lessons warned us of what is going down right now. So everything we were doing before as teaching, keeping the doors open, producing literature, having lectures, having meetings a couple times a week, producing literature is for the reason of what we're going through right now. It was to show you how to be able to survive when this time comes. So some of us are just getting conscious a couple days ago, you know, because of this, and that's all right. But it's a lot of learning that needs to be done, and I'm encouraging and pleading to everybody that if you're not familiar with Drew Ali's program, you need to go run through it quickly, because that's the only thing that's going to prepare us for what's going on now and the next go around and the end of time.
Islam.
And the second part of that question,
Oh, boy.
bearing arms, I always tell people,
Yeah.
don't do anything that you can't defend. I want to make sure that that's clear.
Saying out of paper.
Did that get out?
Don't do anything you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Don't do anything you can't defend.
Correct. You only have rights if you can defend them. And what that means that forget what the Constitution says. The Constitution is in truth and statement, but it doesn't mean it's going to be rewarded that way if you can't defend it. So if it's firearms, right to bear arms, right to travel, the right to do anything, the right to be secure in your person, that's all based on if you have the understanding to defend that right. If you don't, I will not challenge it or counter it to those until you get a better understanding on how to deal with that. Now, I'm saying that just as a blanket statement because it's no different from any other right. It's protected by the Second Amendment. So should you be able to do it or should we do it? Yes. But I'm not saying go run down there and do it, because if you can't defend it, then we will put ourselves in a situation that's worse. Prophet Noble Drew Ali also made a statement to the Moors back in before he left for him. He told the Moors that don't even carry a pocket. Now that's perception again. It's definitely a different day of time, and I'm not going to compare the different days of time, but it's based off your reality and your spirituality. Where you at with yours? Your fear factor. Because me personally, I don't feel a need to carry or bear arms. And the reason why I'm not putting myself above anything as saying that I don't need it or can't nobody harm me, but I just feel that I'm protected, that I don't need it. So Allah is my protector, my God, and my salvation by night and by day. So I just don't feel a need that I will have to put myself in that situation at this day and time. Because law governs all events. So if something is going to manifest or go down, then it went down because of law. So whatever I physically have in my possessions can't override the law. So that's just my understanding and just where I'm at with my reality of this. There have been more that have got permits to carry because of this. Even we understand what a privilege and a permit and a license means. We understand that. But it's no difference from having a driver's license. You know, you accept things for value if you can, and you use it to your advantage. A license is a license, a privilege is a privilege. But I wouldn't go do it without having any protection to defend it. Islam, we'll jump to the next question. Is a trust an account or an understanding? Both. Trust has several different meanings. And I think we're clear on a few of the different understandings or meanings behind it. But a trust on from the common perspective is an account, that a physical account that is used for business to business purposes and protections of assets. But it's also metaphysical, it's also spiritual. You have different types of trust accounts. So it's, when Moors use the word trust, I think they're using it too loosely out there and not giving the different understandings of the different trusts that's out there. And when they're telling people to set up a trust, they don't really explain what type of trust they should be setting up. And there's no one answer for that, because according to a person's, it's like telling a person to set up a business. There's different type of businesses with different type of occupations and different statuses also. So determine what type of business you set up, you have to go into what type of plan, what is your outcome, what's the agenda. It's several different factors that determines what type of business you set up, or what type of trust you set up, or what kind of assets you have. A lot of people don't have any assets, but they setting up UCC accounts, they setting up trust accounts, and they don't have any assets. And at that point, some of it becomes obsolete, or what they're doing, because they have nothing to protect. So again, it's just a person just have to do more research on what they're talking about, and not just do what somebody else wants them to do, or what somebody else trying to sell them. They're trying to sell them a package and saying, well, listen, I'm going to do this for you. Somebody can't do something for you without, you have to know what you want, because somebody else's interest or knowledge might not work for you. You know, so it's caveat emptor on that level, because more are being sold into programs that's really somebody else's interest and don't work for them. And then when they try to legally pursue it, they get the short end of the stick and don't know why.
Islam. So Moors are winding down, so if you have any last questions, get those in. The next question is on the screen right there.
Yes. What would you say the proper process is of recording a live birth? Islam, that should be a question for Sheikh Nika. Islam, but I'm gonna just lay a quick process down. So the vital statistics department is supposed to be the proper department of our local government to record live births. So we know that they abandoned their obligation to the natural people and the public's trust. So because of that, we have to take that recording of the live birth and first put it on record at our local regency, our temple, our nation's government, whatever we call in that. We just call it our temple. That's what we call it. But that should be recorded with our temple first, and then the administrators of the temple will take that affidavit of live birth and put it on the public record with the county clerk, and let the county clerk put a book and page number to it, just like we would do our proclamation of nationality and religion. They will put that on the same record. And if you already proclaimed on the public record, then you can do an amendment, or what they call an addendum, to your proclamation that's already on the public record. Because anything you do after your proclamation is already filed just becomes an addendum to the same book and page number. You don't really want to do a separate recording. You want to, any business you do in your natural state after you proclaim should be an addendum to the one that's already on record. So it's just like creating a folder. Like you have a physical folder in your briefcase and your file cabinet, and whatever documents that Moors have, whatever they get done, whatever they send off to anybody, whatever correspondence that comes to the mail comes back to the Moor, you put it into a folder, right? So now you accumulate this folder. It's the same thing with the public record. It's a folder. So whatever business that you do that you think is necessary that the public needs to know should be added to your folder that's in the county recorder's office. And that folder has a book and page number. So the reason being is if anybody ever wants to look this up, they can go into the electronic filing of the county recorder's office. And when they pull your name up or pull your book and page number up, all your business is in one area and they can see everything that you have done. So that's why you don't want to create a different file number.
Islam.
Islam?
We got, I think, two or three more. The next one's on the screen.
Has Moors do we have to sign birth certificates? I believe that's asking, should Moors sign birth certificates? And I'm assuming that's birth certificates issued by the state. And if that is the question, it's a catch-22. And I tell Moors straight up, we should not be signing birth certificates. But if you're not in your natural capacity, then you should sign the birth certificate. And even if you are in your natural capacity, but you don't know yet, you have yet come to the understanding on how to navigate, then I think the best thing is to sign the birth certificate because you can always rescind it at another date. No different from us Moors. When we were born, we wasn't born into this life. So we had to rescind our birth certificates and disclaim them and accept things for value. So we went through a process and our parents signed the birth certificates on our behalf. But we came back later once we got conscious and we went through the necessary administrative procedures to disclaim what our parents did for us. So law always provides a remedy. So signing the birth certificates is not the end of the world, but we're just trying to teach people and get people on a level where they should already be at the understanding before they even have birth or before they get into relationships where that will be something later that they have to come back and clean up. So you know, according to where you're at in your navigation really determines how you go about that. But as active Moors that's on the level, the answer is no, we should not sign the birth certificates. But we also have to have the birth plan put in place so that we'll know how to navigate thereafter. If your leadership, if your temple, or if you are island by yourself right now and you're not with no body of Moors, then the best thing for you to do is probably sign that until you get to the point where you have help, you have backing with a group of Moors that can help you navigate through that. Because it's going to be very hard to get Social Security numbers. It's going to be hard to send the children to school. It's going to be hard to get public assistance, Medicaid, health plans, and things of that nature. Some sisters don't have a mate in their life. They don't have a father figure in the house, and they need Section 8 social service assistance, governmental assistance, and they're relying off the system to get ahead. If that's you, if that's your position, then you have to accept certain things for value until you get on your feet where you don't need it. You understand what I'm saying? So just think that over, Moors. And if you're not sure, reach out to Moors before you start doing things to get a better understanding. Don't rush it. You don't have to sign it right away. You know, most nationalities, especially religious orders, as rituals and common law practices, they don't sign the birth certificate right away anyway. And because their religion is already established with the state and the hospitals, they don't even question them or force them to sign the birth certificate while they're in the hospital, because they accept their religious rights and immunities not to. But if you come in the hospital as John Doe, and you don't have a proclaimed name and nationality, and you don't have a religion on file, then they're gonna put the screws to you. They're gonna assume that you are chattel property, and then they're gonna force you to sign that birth certificate because they're saying you don't have anything on record to counterclaim that situation. So try to get your status right, because status is the first issue at law. Try to have your status right before you're in a situation where you got to start arguing law. Islam, I'm gonna jump to the next question. What is the
Islam.
best and or proper way to studying this information so it will be more effective for me? I am struggling. Islam, I appreciate that humble approach. And back to what the Grand Sheikh was saying a little earlier, regardless of what site you're going to, the site should be reverting you back to Noble Drew Ali's original and organic lessons and information starting from 1913. And by studying that, you will get more informed, and it will lead you up to this day of time. For example, you have Moors that's posting things that are relevant to right now, or what active Moors should be doing right now. Even though that information is relevant to right now, it's hard to implement that information if you don't have the proper background. If you don't have the sure foundation that Drew Ali have established, then it's going to be hard to pick up what anybody's doing. Myself, Canaanland Moors, RV Bay, Brother Todd. It's going to be hard to pick up what Active Moors is doing right now if you haven't put the preliminary process in place. But first thing is declare your nationality. That's first. Get in with a temple, a local temple. And even if you don't have the proper temple in your area, I still suggest that you go there and participate. You still can be an affiliate or take membership with another temple in another location. You don't have to be subject to that local location. Even though they might try to detour you out of there, if you understand the law, you can let them know that I have an obligation to be here. You cannot tell me to leave. You cannot kick me out. You got to understand your position in Noble Drew Ali's
We're back.
position.
Islam was
I want to tell you this. Wait till you step outside. You realize that spring.
Islam.
You know?
It doesn't matter what happens out there.
Islam Grand Sheikh, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Was
All
y'all
right.
saying something I
Islam.
need to know?
No, the thing was acting up. It just came back right now.
All right, Islam. Yeah, so just to recap off that, I encourage Moors to still go to their local temples, because even though the Moors there, some of them might not have an understanding on the rituals and what they're doing. Moors are coming into the temple with their eyes wide open, so you can go there, get certain literature that you need, and still get some of the teachings of Noble Drew Ali without being subject to their rituals themselves. And at a minimum, it will let you see what needs to be corrected even in those local regencies. So I still suggest Moors to go bum rush those doors, participate on the local level. You still can take membership out with other temples in other states that's giving you the proper knowledge that you need. And between the two, the more Moorish activity you can participate with, the better your growth will be in the future. Especially if you have a family, if you have children, and you will want them to grow up in a temple environment, because this is not an individual pursuit. And although we might get information, we're getting data offline. We might get adult lessons online, but it's always going to be lacking the temple structure if we just go on somebody's website or go on YouTube and listen to a lecture. The children are not learning from that. The children need to be around other children. They need to know protocol. They need to know how to greet one another. They need to learn the language of the Moore Science Temple, because they're our future leaders. So that's, again, another lesson we can have at another time. Islam, the next question.
Yeah, last two questions. Yeah, this is the last two. One right here, and then there's one more after that. And then
Before I get to this question, Grand
we'll,
Sheik, did you have anything to elaborate on anything that was said or asked so far? Did I miss?
no more. Everything was proper. I think you're doing a great job, More. We are right.
I want to say
as usual.
I want to say Islam more too to all the work you do. You too, and I know everyone thanks you for all the work that you do. So keep it up.
Islam, gratitude. So you can go to the next question, and likewise as well. If we do not have any exceedingly high outstanding debts to the de facto, should we pay them all off before proclaiming our nationality?
I think that should be, do we have? I think that should be, if we do have exceedingly high, you probably put something in.
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to filter through that as well. Just for the starters, Drew Ali said that if you do not do anything else, at least declare your nationality. So I don't tell people to wait. You know, he said, let old business be old business and all new business be under, you know, your new knowledge or awareness. So I don't suggest more if you wait. And especially with what's going on now, you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So regardless of what debts or what sins or whatever you got going on in society, you need to make a speedy reparation. Meaning that if you are listening to this or listening to anybody else and you are at the state of mind that you need to do this, then that means you need to do it now. Don't wait. Don't put it off. And the longer you wait, the more karma and interest in karmatic issues you're going to draw and going to incur. Because the debt is not just financial. The debt is also metaphysical. So regardless of what we're doing, see, we're using Federal Reserve notes regardless, because that's the only currency that's in circulation. So it's a way that we use it once we conscious. But once we get conscious, we're still using it. So therefore, it's really how you use it. The intent behind what you do. It's not what you do, it's the intent behind what you do. And that's how you're going to be judged for this. So making a speedy
Last two questions.
Islam.
Yeah, Islam. Last two.
What exactly does proclaiming your nationality do for you?
That might be a non-believer.
Islam, Grand Chief, do you want?
That's the agent.
Islam, I want the Grand Sheik to do the honors to that question.
Islam. What exactly does proclaiming your nationality do for you? When you proclaim your nationality, you'll find out.
All right, that's very deep.
Because we can't tell you what. I can tell you what it does for me, but that's not you.
Are you saying it's the same as sort of
everybody
and jumping in?
Right? Everybody's gonna have a different splash.
Right. You're still jumping
into the water.
That's why I asked you the answer, because I couldn't have put it no better. Islam. I mean, like I said, I know what it did for me. As in, I only could speak for myself.
Right.
I know what it should do for you. That's a whole nother conversation. But very quick, just off the definition that I said earlier, that nationalization means to bring under governmental protection or control. But from a Moorish perspective, what it does for you is it brings you under the protection of national and international laws and protection and guidance. So Prophet Noble Drew Ali made a statement again. He says, Moors, without a nation, you're nothing. Without a grand treasure, you're nothing. So as an individual, you're considered a stateless person. That means that you're not a part of the nation or the international family, or what they call the human family. So you're not considered a member of any of the civilized governments on planet Earth. So what nationality does for everybody, just from a preliminary ground floor perspective, it will bring you under a governmental protection where you have representation and you have a voice. You will have constitutional power to even argue what the Constitution protects and confers. Without that, you can't argue any national and international laws because you're not a part of any nation and you're not a part of anybody's constitution. And individuals don't have constitutions. So an individual does not have individual protection. You have to be a part of a nation to have national protection, and that's where nationality comes in at. That's the reason to proclaim a nationality, to become a part of a nation. No.
Islam. And the last question is up there right now, and then we'll close out.
You're gonna next week, I'll put the, into the calendar there?
Yeah, I'll say it.
Islam.
What is it?
What is my greatest challenge with running the temple? And I would say one of the greatest challenges is trying to teach my perception of this Moorish movement. And what I mean by is an individual, a leader, or a teacher can only teach what's their perception or how they perceive themselves, or what it is that they're teaching, or what it is that they're participating with. So how I view this movement is what I teach. What I know is what I think others should know. How I arrived at what I know is how I think others should arrive at it. So my greatest challenge is cloning my understanding to others. Anybody who walks through the door, I'm trying to
Oh shit! There they go again.
These guys are good, eh? Just when you're getting the jewel, eh? Just when the jewel is dropping.
Just when the jewel's about to drop.
I mean, you know, they change the whole energy paradigm just when they do that. You know that, right? Well, yeah, but none of that. When he says it again, it doesn't have the same energy. You done in there, Mocha? Well, no, because I guess I was just when you went down. I said all of a sudden I had to watch him. Then I was like, she's been in there a long time. No, I wasn't in there a long time. I know he's dumb. Listen, you bro.
Fabricate.
I can hit you from two angles here. All right?
What's going on here? The whole thing is frozen and shit.
It's a 5G, man. We gotta upgrade, bro. We gotta upgrade.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And that's what they're gonna do. Right? They're gonna start creating interferences with the 4G.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly.
So that way,
No.
like they're trying to make you feel like I have to go upgrade. That's what they did with my BlackBerry I had a couple years ago. and stuff like that, or that type of stuff, and whatever else, or whatever, it's not really affecting.
There's a lot more. You hear me?
Islam, I'm here.
Yeah, they're playing.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, they're playing definitely today.
Instead of I would,
So we'll,
no, we're not taking.
we'll
What was the last thing that you heard from me though?
I don't even know, I wasn't even looking.
Where you said you're trying, the hardest thing is trying to pretty much clone the information to the other members.
Yes.
That was the last little bit.
Perpetuating your idea.
You know, I can just think of a phrase that Drew said. He said, if I can just get you more to think, he said you could save yourself. You know, and that's really the answer to my question. It's just
That sums it up.
just trying to get more to think. Once they come to that point, then you know that's true nationalization.
Being annoying.
So then, another part to that question, because that question was from Sheldon.
Mhm.
So he also was asking. He asked, do you take the approach of motivating Moors in your temple to be active, or do you leave it up to them as their responsibility?
I'd like to hear his answer.
That's right, the last question. And that's the last question, Moor Islam.
Islam. When we see certain talent, you know, we'll make suggestions of what needs to be done, and if somebody volunteers to do it, then we let them exercise and assist them on doing whatever it is that they're trying to do. But for the most part, you know, we don't really put stuff on people unless that they are volunteering to take a try or a stab at it. And we just try to cover so much ground sometimes that we just neglect things that need to be done. That we just put things out there and it never really gets where nobody picks up on it. Nobody does it. It might just be a conversation and then we just leave it at that because there's so many things to do. We just all over the place.
Yeah, Islam, I hear
You know, so the heart of man can't attend to too many things at one time.
True.
So we kind of let the things manifest as time proceeds.
Islam more. Well, give thanks for your time, more. Appreciate it. Thank you for spending an hour and a half with the Moors answering their questions.
Islam.
Chat looks like everybody got their questions answered. The people who did ask questions and didn't get them answered, you could email canaanlandguide@gmail.com, right? And then we can do a follow-up session, maybe tonight or tomorrow or something, with regards to those questions. Because we also know that a lot of times in our chat, we have trolls in here asking stuff just because they just want to ask questions and think we have to respond to everything. And we're not gonna, give these questions to the Grand Sheik to answer when this Grand Sheik could answer. And you already know you guys don't want me answering your dumbass questions. So we'll deal with those questions either later on today or tomorrow. You can send them to canaanlandguide@gmail.com or be right here the next time you see us go live, because we know we go live a lot, and a lot of these names that ask some questions, we never heard you ask questions before. So we're looking at you funny. So Islam to all the Moors.
Islam. I appreciate you Moors too as well, putting this together and that same challenge goes right back to you all, because the hardest part is keeping the doors open.
Yeah.
And definitely now is another challenge to that, because the membership dues is what keeps the doors open, the support of the members, the donations and the dues. And if we're not physically meeting, that becomes a whole nother financial challenge to keep these doors open.
Right.
So I don't know about what y'all doing out there, but we haven't even addressed that yet. We kind of just shut down because of what was going down. People been putting their finances into food and other things that nobody's even thinking about that right now. You know, and you can't really ask people that when people ain't working. So the near future we have to look at, you know, because the temple is a regency, but the temple is also a business. You know, and people, we're asking everybody to understand that in order to have a facility and have a physical place to meet, it has to be ran like a business in order to keep the upkeep, the building fund, and things of that nature. So it still takes the financial support of people. If somebody got a stimulus check, somebody got what they think is free money. If you receive money, you know, don't forget about the temple. Don't forget about doors have to be open. Don't forget there somebody has to pay rent. There's either a mortgage or a landlord in the situation. So don't think that the you know the Grand Sheik or a couple members is supposed to just pay everybody's way and keep the doors open. If they shut us down for 6 months, we want the temple to be there again in 6 months when the doors are to reopen. So we asking everybody, whether you're proclaimed or not, whether you're a member or not, whether you in the territory or not, if you have it to spare, you know, feel free to donate to the cause to try to keep these doors open. And that's the plea that goes out to everybody. Do what you can to support your local regencies, the regencies that you do trust, the grand sheiks that you do trust, the temples that you do affiliate with. You know, make donations to them. You don't have to the acts. You don't have to wait till you're asked to donate. Just because the temple is not open and the bucket is not passing around, don't think that you don't have an obligation to support.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, so one of our hardest problems, like the question was asked, is financially keeping the doors open. So if Moors put their money where their mouth is what I'm saying. Islam?
Yes, they are.
Islam. And also on another note, am I still good? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, Mario, you're good.
All right, as a suggestion, the temples need to have their own food bank,
Yes.
just like your local food bank. The temple should set up maybe like a mini depository food bank at the temple, but don't keep too much there because it's also a target place.
Right.
So you have to have a safe haven, or what we call a fallout shelter, for Moorish activity other than the public building, if you can read in between the lines. And we need to have our own safe house for membership and for immediate families. This is where things like the emergency fund comes in at. If Moors haven't put up, Islam, if Moors haven't put up or put into this, now is a time that we need to have meetings to set up that, because we need to start accumulating our own food bank. We can see it manifesting, but I want to, for the Moors that had asked questions or where do they start, what they need to do, what they need to read, I'm gonna also suggest that they go into the oral statements by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And the temples, most temples should have them for purchase. But I want to highlight statement number 25 is an oral statement. Islam, very important that we just be still and listen to this for 1 second.
Slow.
This is by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. He said, one day the Europeans are going to lock the food up in warehouses and put soldiers around them to guard them. And you will go anywhere, he says, to get something to eat. And this is the oral statement he made back in the 1920s. And I'm gonna read another one. I'm gonna repeat that one. One day the Europeans are going to lock the food up in warehouses and put soldiers around them to guard them. So listen, Morris. Pay attention to what's going on right now. That's taking place right now.
Yeah.
Amazon is one of those warehouses that they're using to lock the food up in it. And eventually Amazon is going to be one of the only warehouses that are functioning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Question number 26. Statement number question 26. He says, one day the European is going to let you down. You are going to have to put up a 90-day supply of food to last you until your brothers come to your rescue in the East.
Islam.
So again, we're not going.
And we don't want to listen to the prophet.
A century ago. This is nothing new. So the distraction, the highlight is the coronavirus COVID-19, but that is nothing new. It's just another vehicle that's being used to manifest law. And like I said, law governs all events. So this is beyond the European. So more stop blaming the European for what's going on. This is beyond the European. Statement number 27, and I'm gonna end on this. One day, some of you old Moors are going to and blood will feed out, and you're going to get angry at yourself because you didn't put up enough food.
That's right.
One more time, GS. They're messing with
Mom,
your. One more. They're messing with your stream right now. One more time.
Islam. Statement number 27 says, one day, some of you old Moors are going to be so hungry that you are going to bite into your own flesh, and blood will skeet out, and you're going to get angry at yourself because you did not put up enough food.
So,
That's right.
So you do not need the news or the modern day leadership to tell you to do something that you were already told to do 100 years ago. If you listen to the prophet, if you listen to the words, you listen to your ancestors, even listen to your modern day leaders, then you'll get the information you need to get conscious, to take your place, and to survive. This is survival right now. This is no joke.
Islam.
Islam, Moors.
So nature.
That's Islam.
Islam to all the Moors worldwide, all the Moors in the chat, wherever it is that you're at. Peace and love. We'll just close out with our prayer, and that'll be it for today. Give thanks again, Grand Sheikh Nature.
Give thanks.
Sheikh Aznika gives thanks. Appreciate your time.
Islam, peace and love.
Islam, Moors. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Islam, thank you more.
Love,
Father of love,
truth,
Thank y'all more for allowing us the platform.
justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my God,
my God,
and my salvation.
and my salvation.
By night
By night
and by day,
and by day,
to His holy prophet,
His holy prophet,
noble Juali.
Juali.
Islam. Islam, Moor. If you have any closing remarks, you could make those right now.
Maybe it is. That's what he had. Those were all
Just want to spread the love, continue to love, and preserve the love. We thank y'all Moors for allowing us the platform to exercise and allowing other Moors and citizens to have an offset to what's going on out there. Islam, and I want to also give honor and condolences to some of our people who have not made it through this trying time. We can't forget about those Moors that was unfortunate. that was victimized by this plot, by this genocide. You know, not just Moors, but whoever you are, whoever are victims in this. This is a global pandemic, so it's not specific to anybody. You know, so we just definitely want to give condolences to everybody and people who are struggling, and we want to put up some posts on some remedies that they can do for those who do get sick if their immune system get compromised. We want to put up something, and I ask Canaanland Moors to put something on the site if you haven't already done so, but just things that people should do if they do find themselves sick, on remedies to get past this.
Right.
And we should have another, maybe another part 2 to this where we just go over those remedies.
Right.
And not get caught up into the personal questions on things that Moors would like to know about, but
Right,
get
right.
more into the
Let's stick
remedies on what we can. Yeah.
Yeah. Islam. Islam.
Islam.
Yeah. All right, more.
And Islam. So we need handbooks. We're calling on the herbalists, whoever's out there who have knowledge of this, start posting stuff, creating articles, put it on sites, do whatever you got to do to get the information out to as much people. A lot of people don't know what to do. You know, people are being returned back to their homes. People are being quarantined with no help, and people are not trusting people right now. So if somebody do get sick, the reality is it's not too many people that's going to come to your aid. So you need to start getting products, herbs, vitamin C, things, and put them up into a place. Quarantine your remedies now. That way, if it occurs to you or to an immediate loved one, you already have what you need. You don't have to go get it. You don't have to research what you need to take. You should know what you need to take. And as a preventive maintenance, you should be taking some stuff now. Create a defense wall within yourself that it can't penetrate you.
Islam. I guess that goes right back to once again, just to close out on the prophet, that get ready before you're made to do so.
Absolutely.
Islam.
Islam.
Islam, GS, again. And we'll,
Right, Islam.
yeah, we'll be in touch to set up a round 2, if need be.
All right, Islam.
Thank you for everything, more. Islam. Peace and love.
Islam. Peace and love, Morris.
Islam,
More Islam. Love. Shika Sneaker, Islam.
Islam more.
Islam.
Working that
Islam, Morris.
peace.
Islam. Islam.
Peace.
Islam. What
Peace.
is this going to affect the next Canaanland cookout or what?
They're trying, yo. They're trying. We set for July 4th, so we're just looking to see.
Maybe that's it too, bro.
You know, we're just seeing. We'll see what's going on. Let's see. Right, we're still on schedule though. That's for right now.
All right, Morris. Islam.
All right.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Peace and love, Morris.
Islam.